Welcome back to the channel once again, ladies and gentlemen. How's it going, everybody? We're back in the kitchen for another cooking video. But first, let's shout out some Patreons. So as you see, we have a nice big piece of meat sitting here. This is a roast out of a deer. So first thing, need to grab a nice knife, sharp, and I'm just going to cut some of this excess stuff off that looks a little funny or has silver skin, because you do not want silver skin on any of your meat. It'll just make it a little bit harder to chew with the silver skin on. There we go. That's about all I'm going to clean off. This is a pretty clean piece of meat. Since my brother is a butcher, he does a really good job with butchering meat for us. Take just a sliver off here. So what I'm going to do is show you guys how to make my famous jerky. Okay, so basically I have a bowl right here, if you can see. I'm just going to take this and slice it real thin. Put it in the bowl. Get it all nice and sliced real thin. I try to shoot for 1/8 of an inch thick if I can. If I go a little bit thicker, it's not going to matter. So this is a recipe that I taught myself how to make quite some time ago. I used to use a smoker to make my beef jerky all the time, but using a smoker to make beef jerky is a lot of work. I mean, so I have an old style smoker. You have to put the wood chips in, and you have to put the wood in, or you have to use the charcoal. And usually when you're making beef jerky, it can take, several hours. So by the time I would get started making the beef jerky, I would literally be sitting at the smoker literally like all day long. Look at that. That's just beautiful. Like, I would sit at the smoker all day long to the point where I was just like, I'd get tired of it. By the way, this is a requested video from a subscriber. And I figured, I got an extra deer roast in the fridge. I like using the deer roast for jerky because it's a nice big piece of meat. And I can take it and cut it super thin. So anyways, back to my story. When you do it on the smoker, it takes hours, and you have to sit by the smoker and like babysit every minute of it, because if you walk away and your wood stops smoking or your briquettes go out or anything of that sort, just look at that. That's gonna be awesome. I just got this knife. It is a Outdoor Edge fillet knife, super duper sharp. So anyways, so it would literally, I would sit at the smoker all day long, and I got tired of it. That one got a little bit thicker, but hey, it's okay. So I bought a food dehydrator, and I started making all of my jerky on a food dehydrator. My food dehydrator is a little bit older of a food dehydrator. It's not like one that has temperature control on it, or like my dad, he has this nice big huge temperature controlled, and he can set it, and it has a fan in it. Mine doesn't have a fan in it. So if you have a food dehydrator that doesn't have a fan in it, it's okay. You can still make this. You just have to have a, let's see, you just have to turn your racks every, say, 4 hours, or every 3 hours. You need to turn your racks. And I'll show you that process when we get there. I am almost done cutting up this meat. Alright, now I am done cutting up the meat. Let me grab a washcloth. Oh, I got one right here. So, now, I have a little bit of scrap meat over here. We have our meat. It is nice, thin slices, because by the time you put this about this thick onto the food dehydrator, it will shrink down about half the size that it is. Some of that fat off. So, my tip and trick to the first thing I start out with is a Dr. Pepper. I only have Dr. Pepper cream soda, which is one of my new favorites right now. So I'm going to go ahead and use this, but normally I would just use a Dr. Pepper or a Coke. And the reason why a Dr. Pepper or Coke is because they're really strong. One, it will help your meat suck up all the extra juices and sugars. And two, it will help tenderize the meat more than it is at this point it's at right now. So I'm just going to take some of this and pour in there, about like yo. And I'm just going to make sure that everything is nice and covered in the Dr. Pepper or Coke, whatever you decide to use. So, let's give it a splash more. Now, that is how I start. I will take this and put it into the fridge and let it sit for 24 hours. And the meat will soak up all of that Dr. Pepper or Coke, whatever you decide to use. And also it will tenderize that meat. So it should make it extremely tender. And then in 24 hours, I'll be back to show you guys what the next step is to do from here. So I'm just going to cover it up with some shrink wrap. That way it can soak up, just sit in there and soak up all those juices. And when I'm done in 24 hours, we'll be back for the next step. So it'll be just a GIF for you guys, but it'll be quite some time for me. So I'll see you guys shortly. Okay, now we're on to our next step. Just giving this a good stirring along the line of the last 24 hours. I have gotten into the fridge. I gave it a good stirring. You just see how much more the meat is broken down. It's definitely more tender. It's going to be perfect. So now we have to get all of this juice out. So I'm going to go strain this, and I'll be right back. Okay, now you see a lot of the juices are gone. There's still some juices in there, not a big deal. So I'm going to take some of my rub and seasoning that I use. It's my very, 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 very favorite stuff to use, and it's called Reloaded Rub and Seasoning. So I just give it a good healthy dashing of this. This has got all kinds of nice goodies in it. And then I grab, you know it, gotta get that Lowry's. Get that Lowry's. And then, last but not least, I use this stuff here. You buy it in a store. It is called Jerky Dry Rub and Mix. I use this because it's got General Cure in it. So when you use General Cure in any type of meat processing, dehydrating, smoking, etc., it allows you to leave the meat out. Like, you can leave it in a Ziploc bag on your counter, and it could stay for literally a year sitting on your counter, and it would be fine to continue to eat. So this is why I use this, because it has General Cure in it. You can buy this at Walmart. You can buy this at like a Sportsman's Warehouse or a Sportsman's store. So basically, this is what it looks like. All that white is General Cure, and all of the other stuff is other seasonings. So I'm just going to pull my piece of tape off that I have on here, and I'm going to give me a nice big helping of that, and do one more. That's what I use. It also has a bunch of good seasonings and stuff in it, but the main thing is because it has the General Cure in it. It allows me to leave this meat sit out without going bad. Just mix that all the way in really good. I used 2 tablespoons this time around. You're only supposed to use 1 on that, but it's this was about a 2.5 pound roast that I cut up, so it will all be just fine. Now I give it a good smell. It smells like venison. Nummy nummies. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and pause you guys because I'm going to get out the food dehydrator and some other seasonings that I put in it. Okay, so the last thing that I put into my jerky is some of this Westin's garlic and pepper jerky seasoning. And I'll just open this up and just give it a couple of good shakes. Like so. You can see it's got a nice even coat on it. Everything's got a nice even coat of seasonings on it. So I have my food dehydrator here. This is the one I use. Good Lord, that is dirty in there. Okay, sorry about that. I had to clean that up real quick. I cleaned the trays the best I can. the trays never seem to come fully clean. So basically now is I'm just going to take the meat by hand and just lay it out onto the trays. Always leave a good gap between the meat because you want air to pass by. This gives it a nice cure all the way around because it's got a nice gap between your meat. What is going on with this piece? It acts like it. Oh, it is. It's laying on top of each other. Like so. Depending on how much meat you have, you probably could group it up a little bit together more. So I'm going to grab another tray. And everywhere where there's meat here, I'm going to rotate it. I'm going to try to skip those spots. That way it can go through a little bit more evenly. Don't have to be all perfect. God, this smells so good. Just like so. Just keep on putting your layers on. Try to rotate. See how much this meat is breaking down? It's ridiculous how much Dr. Pepper will tenderize your meat. Coke, Dr. Pepper, it breaks it down so nicely and makes it so much tender. So basically this small, all I'm doing to all of these trays, layering them up. Like so. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pause, you guys. Okay, I just paused you guys so I can speed up through this process. That way it's not so boring while you guys watch me lay the meat out onto the tray. My fingers are like ice cubes right now. It's alright, we're almost done. Almost done. And then once I get this done, we're going to go ahead and plug it in and let it start to cook. Actually, it doesn't really cook it, it dehydrates it. Couple little scrappy pieces. Just going to lay around these other shelves like so. Just like so. I'll wipe my hands off here. So I have a total of 5 trays. So when I'm doing the jerky, I usually take up all 5 trays. Put the lid on, and I have these small vents open. And we're just going to go ahead and plug it in. And every 2 hours, I will take off the top lid and put it on the bottom. And then the second one on there, second, and then, so basically, I take the bottom one, and that becomes the top one. And then top one goes down, and I rotate every 2 hours. It takes 6 to 7 hours to cook this. Mine does. You may have an air fryer that has a blower in it. If you do, that's fine. You will not have to move your trays. This way, I have to move my trays. But I prefer it this way because I could check on it. I do not want it to be overdone. If it gets overdone, then it's going to be like leather. And I do not want leather jerky. So I'm going to go ahead and plug it in. And we'll be back in 2 hours. We are 2 hours in. We're going to take the lid off. Oops, let me turn this light on. Okay, you can see it is starting to get a little crispy on the edges, so we're just going to take this tray, put it down here, and then this tray, and then this one, and then this one, and you see this meat, it's already starting to get dried out pretty good, and then we're going to put the lid on, and then we're going to put it back onto like that, and let it go for 2 more hours. And we'll be back in 2 hours. Alright, so we're back at it again. We're going to take this top tray and this one off. This one's going to go down bottom, and then this one, and then this one, and then this one, and then this one, just to keep them rotating around. See, the meat is starting to get dried up. Still got some leathery texture to it. Oh my god, that's good. Just the way it is. Okay, see you back in 2 hours. Alright, so we are back to check on our jerky. Basically, at this stage, it has gone for 6 hours. I like to stop it and let it cool off and feel the texture of the meat. So, let me... Alright, so I was trying to get this in a little bit better of a picture. So at this stage, like I said, I let it cool off. So last night I unplugged it at 6 hours, let it cool off. Excuse me. Since it does have the general cure in the meat and the seasoning now, I don't have to worry about refrigerating it. So I just let it cool all night long last night. And I come back and I check the pliableness to the meat. So like you see right there, it cracked. That's about perfect. It's still soft. Let's take a bite. Perfect. I mean, it is perfect. Some of these a little bit thicker pieces have a little bit more rubbery feel to them. Oh my god, that's good. So basically, excuse me while I'm eating this, I just go through, pick the pieces up, like this piece, it's thinner. That's done. Let me grab a bowl real quick. Okay, so I'm going to put this back up here, and I'm going to take all of this off, because it is done. This piece may need to go a little bit longer. Those are done. It does stick a little bit to the trays. Just work out a little bit, it'll come off. This stuff's perfect. I do not like super dried out jerky. It's gotta be touched. Rip it into pieces. It's gotta be a touch moist still. If you don't have a touch of moistness to it, by the time, like, this will take me a couple of days to eat because I'm not going to sit here and hoard all of it down. My brother and my dad may come over and hoard a bunch of it. My brother sat over here the other day and ate almost a whole bowl full, about like that much, to himself within like a half an hour. I was just like, dude, what the frick? But he was hungry, I guess. Now, some of you may ask, is there something you can put on the racks before putting the meat on there? Possibly. But the way I like it, flip these over so they cook the other way for a little bit longer. Now, I'll put those back on there for another half an hour. It's only 4 pieces that just feel too rubbery. I want it a little bit more done than that. This piece here is on the edge. I'm going to throw that in. That piece there is probably done. So it's really just these 2 pieces. And then I'll throw the lid back on and I'll let that go for another half an hour and call it quits on that. But there you go. Got a nice big old fat bag of jerky. Some of it's nice and thin. Some of it's a little bit thicker. When you're hand cutting it, it's going to be a little inconsistent. We do have a meat slicer, you know, like one of the big deli slicers. We do have one of those, and sometimes I will stick the meat in there, and I will slice it off like an 1/8 of an inch thick on that, or maybe a 1/4, because by the time, so if you cut your meat about a 1/4 of an inch thick, by the time it dehydrates, gets all the juices out of it, you're going to be looking at maybe a little over an 1/8 of an inch thick. So, I mean, that's right about an 1/8 of an inch. And then like this is, like, you can see through it. So it's thin. I like a little bit thinner myself, but okay. So, that's it for today's video, folks. Are you sitting waiting patiently? Let me... taste test. Did you even chew it? You're choking on it, ain't you? Good Lord. Alright, folks. I'm going to go ahead and call it quits here. I hope you all have a fantastic day. Just look at that beautiful goodness of jerky. So, as always, have peace. Peace, love, and respect for all. And I hope you guys all have a fantastic day.